There's one thing no one escapes: suffering. Whether you're an emperor like Marcus Aurelius or a slave like Epictetus, life still hits you without mercy. War, disease, losing loved ones, betrayal, collapse, no one is immune. The question isn't how to avoid pain, but rather, when pain hits, how do you face it? We middle-aged men know that feeling all too well. Losing a wife, losing a child, losing dignity, losing direction. You wake up each morning and just want to close your eyes again, disappear completely. No one understands, no one cares, and if you speak up, all you get are cold lines like, "Man up." Epictetus said, "We are not disturbed by what happens, but by how we interpret it." That one sentence to me was a way out. Suffering is real, but despair is a choice, a wrong reaction. Stoicism doesn't promise to lift the burden off your shoulders, but it teaches you to grip tighter and keep walking through the storm. It shows you that meaning isn't found in peace, but in the fact that even when life shows no mercy, you still refuse to bow. And from that darkest place, you begin to see a light. Not from someone coming to save you, but from within, when you decide, "I will not be broken." Before we begin, don't forget to subscribe and like if you're new here. It helps me keep bringing you more valuable content. There's one thing shared by those who've walked through hell and made it out. They didn't wait for life to get easier. They learned how to breathe through fire. And that's where Stoicism stops being abstract philosophy and becomes a survival compass. James Stockdale, a US Navy pilot, was shot down and imprisoned for 7 years in a POW camp in North Vietnam. No rescue, no certain release, tortured, isolated. He once said, "I survived not through blind optimism, but through the truth that I could master how I responded to that truth." In prison, he recalled lessons from Epictetus and wielded them like a warrior deflecting blow after blow. Locked in darkness, he found light in the one freedom no one could take, his power to choose his response. Likewise, Viktor Frankl, the Jewish doctor sent to the death camp of Auschwitz, watched his parents, wife, and children be murdered one by one. But he survived and wrote Man's Search for Meaning, where he declared, "Man can endure any suffering if he sees meaning in it." Neither of these men studied Stoicism from books. They lived it, with blood, with tears, with decisions no one could understand but themselves. And they proved one thing: not everyone survives adversity. But if you do, you're no longer the same. You become something else, tougher, calmer, and aware of something the rest of the world may never grasp. Suffering isn't the enemy, it's the test, the crucible that asks whether you deserve a life that means something. Stoicism doesn't promise everything will be okay. It only asks you one question: if things never get better, how will you keep going? And if you can answer that, then you've already saved yourself. From that point on, we begin to understand something crucial. To live, life doesn't have to be easy. What we need is a value system, strong enough to keep us from being swept away by fear. And the first step to building that system is to clearly distinguish what we can control and what we cannot. If you're lost in a foggy forest where every direction looks uncertain, the first thing you need isn't strength, but direction. The same goes for suffering. You can't control how long the rain will fall, but you can choose whether to wear a raincoat or just stand there and complain. And that is the first principle of Stoicism. Distinguish between what is in your hands and what isn't. Epictetus said, "Some things are up to us, like our thoughts, actions, attitude, and values. And some things are not, like the weather, what others say, society's recognition, or even someone walking out of our lives." It sounds simple, but this is the life or death line between calm and collapse. I once met a man whose wife left him after 15 years of marriage. He lost custody of his kids, had his assets split in half, and was abandoned by his friends. For a whole year, he kept repeating the same question: what did I do wrong? But one day, after reading Epictetus, he realized something. His wife leaving was not something he could control. What he could control was how he got back up, how he treated his kids, how he took care of himself, how he rebuilt his life. The question was no longer, why did this happen to me, but what will I do with this? Stoicism doesn't tell you to be cold or emotionless. You can hurt, you can cry, you can fall. But even then, you still have one untouchable zone of power: how you think and how you act. No one can take that from you unless you hand it over yourself. When someone insults you, you can get angry, fight back, scream to protect your ego. Or you can pause, look inward, and ask, is what they said true? Is it worth trading my peace for this? Choosing the second path, that's living like a Stoic philosopher. This strategy isn't about passively accepting everything. It's about not wasting time punching the air, fighting things that are out of reach. It's how you conserve your strength to win, where change is actually possible. We middle-aged men are torn between responsibility, loss, and endless change. If we don't know where our circle of control is, we'll get sucked into the emotional chaos others create. But if we can define what is truly ours, then even in the middle of a storm, we remain steady. Like a rock in the waves, not because the waves are weak, but because the rock knows it doesn't need to drift. And from there, a door opens, not to the outside world, but inward into ourselves. This isn't just a video. This is the reminder you needed today. Hit subscribe and like if you want someone in your corner, pushing you to live by your real values. There are times when you feel so lonely you don't want to talk to anyone. Everything feels meaningless: your job, your friends, even relationships that once meant everything. Especially after heavy blows, divorce, betrayal, or losing the child you loved most. In those moments, the mind tends to shut down, shrink inward, even go completely numb. And if that state lingers, you'll slowly detach from the world. And more importantly, from the human part of yourself. Marcus Aurelius, in the middle of commanding troops on a freezing battlefield while disease ravaged his men and rebellions flared across the empire, wrote, "We were made for each other, like hands made to work together, like upper and lower teeth made to bite as one. Whenever we oppose one another, we go against nature." In Stoic philosophy, this is known as Sympatheia, the recognition that you are part of a connected web of humanity and you have a responsibility within it. It might sound idealistic, but the truth is this: strength isn't about cutting yourself off from others. It's about knowing your place in the whole. Knowing that you are not the center of the universe, and your pain, no matter how deep, is not the only one. That doesn't make the pain hurt less, but it gives you something else: compassion. And from compassion, you begin to re-enter the world. I once met a father who lost his child in a car accident. He didn't speak to anyone for 3 years. But one day, he started writing letters to families with children battling cancer. Then he began visiting sick kids in the hospital, not because he forgot his own child, but because he realized pain, when hoarded inside, will destroy you. But if you bring it out and use it to help someone else, it becomes something meaningful. Sympatheia isn't some fluffy philosophy about love and kindness. It's a survival decision. When you connect with others, you're no longer a lone victim. You become part of a current, and the current doesn't get stuck. Stoicism doesn't tell you to live like an isolated island. On the contrary, it urges you to contribute, to help, to protect, and to heal, not just yourself, but others. Because only when you do that are you truly living in line with your most natural human essence. So if you're feeling detached, like you're drifting away from the world, start again with something small. Reach out to an old friend, help a stranger, listen to someone's story without interrupting. You don't need to heal the whole world. Just don't close your heart. That's the first step to becoming human again, in the truest sense. In the harshest years of your life, you'll discover a bitter paradox. It's not abundance that teaches appreciation, but loss. Only in the moments when everything's been stripped away do you finally open your eyes to the things you once took for granted. Viktor Frankl, while imprisoned in a Nazi concentration camp, wrote that what kept him alive wasn't moldy bread or the faint sunlight through iron bars. It was the memory of his wife's smile. Just a fragile memory, but enough to help him endure hunger, cold, and torture. He wrote, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how." And that's the core of this Stoic lesson. Gratitude. Not after you've gained, but while you're still lacking. Not when life calms down again, but right in the middle of when it throws you face first into the mud. In modern society, middle-aged men often chase big things: achievement, money, status. But one day, when it all collapses, you suddenly realize that the most important things might be a warm meal, a check-in call from your kid, or a quiet morning making coffee without being criticized. But if you never pause to appreciate those things while you had them, then when they're gone, all you'll have left is regret. Stoicism doesn't teach you to depend on external circumstances. It teaches you how to see the value in every moment. Seneca wrote, "Nothing is small if you are grateful for it, and nothing is big if you take it for granted." Picture this. You're sitting in the middle of a gloomy day, bored, jobless, alone. But if you're still breathing, still thinking, still in possession of a working body, you already have more than millions who didn't survive life's disasters. Start from there. A deep breath, a hot cup of tea, the gentle look from a waiter. The tiniest things we often ignore, those are the anchors that keep you from drifting away from yourself. Gratitude is not a feeling, it's a choice. It's you deliberately focusing on what remains instead of what's gone. It's you finding something beautiful even in a terrible day, not to deny the pain, but to keep your heart from freezing over. And if you can build that habit, you'll realize this. You can survive even when life hasn't gotten better yet. You don't need to have it all to feel whole. As long as you don't lose your sense of gratitude, nothing can rob you of your inner strength. And from that place, you'll be able to keep going, even if the world outside hasn't changed yet. Have you ever looked at a piece of burnt bread? The crust is scorched, cracked, imperfect. But Marcus Aurelius didn't see it that way. He wrote, "The bread expands, cracks, burns on the edges. That's what makes it more appealing." To him, beauty wasn't in polish, it was in what's real, raw, and unapologetic. And that's how a Stoic sees life. Not just accepting chaos, but finding beauty within it. Thomas Edison, after losing his entire factory in a massive fire, stood watching the flames and told his son, "Go get your mother and all her friends. They'll never see a fire like this again." No anger, no complaints, no blame. He rebuilt everything from the ashes and created something even greater than before. Not because he was lucky, but because he had a certain eye, an eye that could spot opportunity inside disaster. If you're going through a crisis, divorce, bankruptcy, lost direction, you know what it feels like when everything collapses. But it's in those exact moments that Stoicism shows you chaos isn't the end. It's the raw material for reforging yourself. Chaos leaves you no choice but to change. It forces you to drop the surface layers and return to your core. It strips away pretense, decoration, and reveals who you really are. And if you're clear-headed enough to see it, you'll realize this is your moment to rebuild, not a copy of who you were, but a sharper, clearer, more honest version of yourself. Marcus Aurelius once said, "Love your fate, even if it's not what you would have chosen." Because if you wait for life to be smooth before you appreciate it, you'll miss most of the journey. But if you learn to see light in the shattered pieces, you'll realize everything holds value, even failure, even ruin, even scars. The world doesn't have to be perfect for you to see beauty. The person you love doesn't have to be flawless for you to love them. And you don't need to win to be worthy of living. True beauty lies in how you choose to see. And if you can see vitality even in your most chaotic days, then nothing can truly break you. You don't need to run from the storm. You can walk through it with an open heart and clear eyes. Most people quit before they ever learn the biggest lesson. But if you're still watching, I know you're different. Hit subscribe, like, and let's go all the way together. There's a very specific kind of loneliness, the kind where you think you're the only one going through this kind of pain, the only one betrayed, the only one stripped of their child, the only one backed into a corner by life. And when your belief in fairness collapses, you begin to ask, why me? Why did life choose me to break? But then you read what Marcus Aurelius wrote nearly 2,000 years ago. Whatever is happening to you has happened to others, is happening to others, and will continue to happen. Not to dismiss your pain, but to remind you, you're not alone. Suffering isn't a sign that you failed. It's proof that you're living as a real human being. From the wounded warriors returning from battle to the modern-day father who loses his parental rights after a divorce, all of them carry a deep fracture. But that's exactly what connects them. In support groups for veterans or recovering addicts, the thing that heals isn't theory, it's empathy. One person says, "I've been there." Another nods, "I get it." And in that moment, an invisible bridge is built. No pity, just truth. In Stoicism, the shared suffering of humanity isn't something to run from. It's the foundation of compassion and resilience. When you understand that every generation before you has struggled like you are, you stop cursing life and start learning from those who came before. You realize you're a link in a long chain of people who've stood back up after falling, who've kept their soul intact while being crushed by circumstances. Look at those who came before you. The mother who lost her child but still cares for orphans. The man who was left by his wife but remains kind to women. The father who was erased from his child's life but still writes in a journal to that child, knowing they may never read it. These people, they're not heroes, they're ordinary, but they chose not to turn bitter. When you dare to look deep into your own pain and realize it's also the pain of many others, you no longer see yourself as a cursed, isolated soul. You begin to feel part of a nameless community, one of those who live honestly, hurt deeply, and still don't give up. And sometimes just knowing that is enough to get you through one more day. And then, from that place that once felt like the end, you see something strange. Pain can connect us more powerfully than words ever could. No one wants to suffer, but if you must suffer, then suffer with meaning. Don't hide from it, don't mask it, and most of all, don't abandon anyone in it, including yourself. There comes a time when we men start looking back and ask ourselves, what have I truly lived for? Maybe you've built a house, succeeded in your career, earned respect. But when all of that fades, what's left? A title on a business card? A bank account? A few drinking sessions that no one remembers the next day? Stoicism doesn't teach us to live to stand out, but to live so something remains. Live in such a way that when you're no longer here, the world still benefits from your existence. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Live as though you're carving into stone, not so others will remember you, but so what you leave behind might help someone." In ancient Greece, there's a phrase engraved on a gravestone, "A man planted trees, knowing he would never sit in their shade." That's how a Stoic lives, not for fame, not for repayment, but because it's the right thing to do. Maybe you feel like your life hasn't been glorious enough. But stop and look around. If you've ever taught your child a decent lesson, you've planted a seed. If you've helped someone get back on their feet without asking for anything, you've passed on value. If you've lived with resilience without hurting others, you've contributed to a more orderly world, even if only in the smallest way. Seneca said, "Life is not long, but it's long enough if you live it right." Living right doesn't mean following some rule book. It means choosing to live with responsibility. Responsibility to future generations, to the people watching you, maybe your child, a younger colleague, or a stranger on the brink, who finds hope in the way you live. And if you think you're too insignificant to leave a legacy, remember this: not everyone makes history, but everyone leaves an impact. A single sentence you once spoke during someone's crisis might save them. An action you took in silence might change someone's life or death decision. Living for legacy doesn't mean doing grand things. It means doing the right thing, repeatedly, relentlessly, without needing credit. Because in the end, your name may be forgotten, but your influence won't. It will live on, in the way someone stands stronger because of you, in the way a child grows up with faith because his father didn't give up. And if one day you feel empty, ask yourself, what I'm doing today, could it help someone I'll never meet? If the answer is yes, then you're living right. And by Stoic standards, that is the highest achievement a man can reach. Life won't pause to let you catch your breath. There will be times when you're betrayed, when you lose something or someone, when you're isolated or crushed without mercy. But if you know how to distinguish what's in your hands, if you still hold on to gratitude even when all that's left is a flicker of light at the end of the tunnel, if you still stay connected to humanity, even through pain, and still find beauty in what's broken, then you've grasped the true spirit of Stoicism. You don't need to live a grand life, but you need to live a weighted one. A weight that comes from calm presence, from compassion, from not letting impulsive emotions take the wheel. Because in the end, what makes you a man worth respecting isn't what you've achieved, but how you hold yourself in the face of suffering, how you treat others while you yourself are falling apart. Stoicism is not a philosophy to quote, it's a way of life to choose every single day. No announcements, no badges, just this. Every time the storm hits, you remain standing. Every time loss returns, you don't retreat. Every time the pain becomes unbearable, you still choose to be kind. And if you're walking through a dark season right now, remember, you are not alone. Others have come before you, from Epictetus and Marcus Aurelius to ordinary men around you who have lived, fallen, and risen again. And now, it's your turn. Thank you for being here. If you found this video helpful, subscribe, turn on notifications, and like this video. Don't forget to leave a comment so we can spread positivity together.